in some case, you may have someone like myself that might just be a payroll clerk. And you can put me in there to be able to view an account, but I can't make any transfers. So there's a lot of security features built in there internally. So so all that will be set up during implementation, and we'll set it up just the way we want it. And no questions silly. So think about it. I'm sure you're gonna be home tonight at 11 o'clock and you're gonna go, shit. Send it to us. Or call us tomorrow and we'll try to come up with anything and we'll try to, address any questions you have.
Okay.
Any other questions or?
And, I'm sorry, I didn't.
Mr. Bradley?
You know me better, I guess.
Ask the question.
Go ahead, Mr. Bradley.
Yes.
I'm Dave, by the way. I
Yeah.
didn't catch your name.
Kevin Meyer. Nice to see you.
Bradley's a board member, right?
Couldn't see, so hopefully
Thanks for coming out.
you have
I got a couple quick questions for you.
Sure.
You mentioned you reviewed a period of bank statements that Brian gave you, right?
Yes.
How many years did you go?
Well, we got 3 months worth of statements. Usually we look at a high month, low month, and somewhere in the middle. And
But they weren't
then-
consecutive months, you just picked a couple months.
Just a few months, yeah. And
Last
then,
three.
You picked the last three? And you asked that information as part of this process?
yes.
You said, give me 3 months, and then you sent them 3 months?
I also gave him a year's treasury.
Okay. And which bank account did you physically give them?
Over Bank of Rainville is much on.
So just the one big,
No, all accounts.
all accounts for Machon?
Correct.
Okay. And then when you guys reviewed that, you pulled out the history, and that's where you created it?
Yes.
And this is option 2.
Yes.
We had an option 1 where we were looking at Smart Safe. Option 2 was with the armored car pickup. That's the one that we were recommending because we figured with any of the coin that you're gonna have coming in from cafeteria funds, things like that, that the armored car pickup would be a more feasible option.
What are we doing roughly in cash in a week? Do you really generate a lot of cash in a school district? You got 2,000 kids that,
On a Friday, on a Monday morning from the football game, it's almost all cash. So it's
Yeah, but you're
several
talking,
thousand.
how much?
Was it 5,000, 6,000?
Yeah.
sometimes? Yeah.
And a cafeteria, 2,000 kids, even if it's everybody spending $1 or 2, you're only talking 4 or 5 grand times.
Yeah.
I think
So-
we estimated $25,000 in cash.
In cash a week? Yeah.
For the month.
Oh, for the month?
Yeah, 25,000.
And Dave, that's a good question because
It's
we
negligible.
see a lot of our school district customers where 5 years ago, we were getting $100,000 a month from an average school district. But now, there's more options for students to pay. There's card programs. I know at Council Rock, where my kids go, we have a company called Meal Pay. So if my daughter's a little short on money, she'll call me, hey, Dad, or I get a notification as well when I get below $10. But I go right online on my phone, I use a credit card and I put the money in the account. There's a small convenience fee, but that seems to be the trend over the last couple of years. So we've seen a lot of the cash that typically would go through, that would come from the cafeteria. It's been cut easily in half over the last 3 to 5 years. I think we're eventually, I don't know if we're ever going to do away with it all, because there's
We're
always going to be
trying.
someone that's going to come in with cash. But cash is always king, I guess. But I think we are going to get to a point where it's going to be a lot smaller, and you may see that.
Do we have any situations within our cash transfer system now that we've misaccounted for some of that cash or any of that issue? You don't have any sticky finger syndrome, have any checks and balances from football
Not
games?
that I found. The only thing I had last year is the startup money for football was $25 short, but it looks like they deposited that into ticket sales instead of back into the startup.
But there's a lot of, there's no checks and balances of one person clicking who's coming in or a security camera, or someone's literally counting,
The only checks and balances are starting ticket number and ending ticket number.
and that's it, okay.
Right, so there could be some collusion because the guy typing the tickets is not the person selling it.
Or sure,
But-
okay.
Yeah, it's.
The movie theater syndrome.
Yeah.
So when we
But they're
did,
not walking off with big dollars if they are.
when I was younger, we did a audit program for the parking down in Philadelphia. Guy would fly an airplane on his way to the Atlantic City, take 2 pictures of the parking lot at a given time, and then he could back in how many cars are missing, because that's a huge cash business, makes it.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a huge amount of sticky finger syndrome within that setup. So I don't think we do really much other than ticket numbers, right?
Well, yeah, we double checked that we got the cash of all the tickets that were sold, starting at any tickets, right?
But having that accountability would help us as a district to make sure that it keeps honest people honest, because most people are honest.
Yeah.
It's just a way to make sure of it. You have the average balance here at this $9 million. Brian, our projected P&L, I'll use it, or budget, is that we're losing a couple $1 million a year. When does this fall beneath their threshold of this $4.5 million? What's our projection?
The only time it would really fall below that is come June timeframe, because we're always cash rich at the beginning of the year, but come June, we have, almost at the end of the year, we get our last state aid, and we're paying bills
Right.
up and through July 31st before we start receiving new cash for the following year. So June, July, will probably be below that.
But some of this is our general fund,
You're right.
and that's been being bled pretty heavily over the last couple of years. Will we ever manage underneath this threshold that they're talking about?
I think because we're always going to have probably a month or 2 months of accounts payable, put the cash out to 6 months, 60 days down the road.
Because of the income, just the standard cash flow will keep you at that range?
Yeah. Because we basically spend $4 million a month, right?
And, yeah, and then some. I mean, right now you're
Right, so
closer
we always
to,
have maybe a 60-day float that we're playing with accounts payable.
right. And then the return on investment for the switch
Now,
that you made.
the only time, I will say, the only time it might hurt us if the state doesn't pass a budget.
At which point you're short.
Since we don't get cash, and that's when you go, we're always trying to spend everything, and we still got to make payroll, and then you end up going out for a TAM, tax participation note, until state reimburses us,
Right, but our bond rate right now is at 5 something, right? For some of the bonds we have out there?
No, it'll go to 4.5 in 4 years to 1. The others are all 2 or lower.
2 or lower. And they're putting together 1.95. And you were saying that the return on investment for making the switch, what was the actual return on investment?
Well, right now, you're gonna be looking at approximately about $15,000 a month in interest income. That'll total about $181,000 a year in interest income, plus with the earnings credit offsetting the fees, that'll be another $24,000 that you don't have to put as a line item in your budget for fees. So
Okay.
it's gonna make your return somewhere around 200%.
Right. And then what are we paying now on that same?
Or we're not paying fees, but we're going to receive, I think last month, it's going up to 1%, but we were at 0.6%. So
Yeah, 'cause it was
it's a huge
negligible.
jump.
I said we should pay off some of our bonds because it was so low, why have the cash? Right?
Yeah.
And that was a function of credit
And
history.
that's why I'm looking at, if we can get a higher rate of return.
At least it's worthwhile in comparison
Instead
to
of the
the,
2.1% bond that we can pay off now, we'd be getting 1.95%.
something that's better on the cash flow, okay.
Yeah.
And then you're saying that
This is my alternative to paying off the bond.
Correct, I saw that. I saw the chess move, I just wanted to make sure we got it.
No, I know you're
I know, I
It's a
see
good
where we're
question.
going. Well, that's where we're heading.
And
We were talking
Andy and
about,
I have been talking
we have
to
a
different
horrible-
places for a while, so.
right, we have a horrible debt issue problem within the district that we gotta rectify. This interest rate's not tagged to any current
No
Fed fund rate
current
or-
index.
until you get to-
Typically, when interest rates are higher, a lot of times banks will tie their interest rate
Yeah,
to.
prime -1, prime -1.
Or prime sometimes to the 30-day LIBOR, 90-day T-bill, something like that. Right now, we just haven't gone back to that. And I'm not sure how soon we'll go back to it, but we're trying to make sure that the interest rate that we pay is gonna be commensurate to current market rates.
And yeah, what's prime right now?
Prime rate, I think, is between 2 and 2.25, if I remember correctly. It was just raised, it was either,
Yeah. I
it's
think it's-
something like that.
yeah, okay. The 3 months you gave him,
Mhm.
I'd like a copy of those 3 months. And actually, let's do the same thing for 1 year. So we can actually look at it as a year, if you don't mind, and give it to the whole board, whatever. I mean,
No, that's why I gave the treasury, because that actually gives you the balance every single
it's a
month.
month, right.
And
then-
that's actually on mine too, so.
Right, but the bank accounts themselves from Ma-Chunk, those actual statements, if you could give that to the board the same way you gave it to them. And you guys did not have to, hold on, I put some count those ones. So, did you have to fill out a right to know to get that information from the district?
No,
It was just, you asked for it and it was given because you're a prospective vendor and it was handed to you, correct?
yes,
Did you have to pay for that information to come from the district?
no, I did not.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that greatly. It's kind of funny, but when I want that information, I literally have to pay 25 cents a page to get it as a board member. Great, isn't it? That's all I got. my commercial has been made. Not when I get information from
When
you.
you ask for information from me, I give it to you.
A lot of, yeah, most of the
It
time.
might
you're
not
right.
be right away.
That I do respect greatly, and I do appreciate that, and you are correct, that information to a board, the governance of that entity, should be readily available, and I agree with that. I think you respect that concept as well, and I appreciate it. That was my political side, so, that's why I report all this shit.
And I have to say, the 12-month treasury reports that was very handy, because that allowed me to take a look at the 12 months worth of balances. So most of the focus when we looked at the statements was basically for the transactions and volumes, number of checks that you're writing on an average each month, how many items you're depositing, how many deposits you're making, how many ACH debits and credits you're processing, and it gives us an idea of the services you're currently using. So, you know, that's the primary use that we get the statements for. And then I use the treasurer's report to derive the average monthly balance.
And he mentioned that deposits scanned in are instantly available the next day, so there's no float on the funds that we're depositing.
Check deposits.
Yeah, and when someone walks in and asks for their money, they're getting it withdrawn from our account the same day that it's being responded. There's no float on the back end of this either. Like,
No, and even if you're depositing checks through TD, if they're from the local area, which most of them are, you're depositing it today, it's available to you tomorrow.
Right.
That's why typically most of our school board customers see a very low flow rate.
And do we actually provide the dollars to the main amount of money that we're spending is payroll, obviously. Does that go out on a Friday after 3 o'clock, so it shows up on a Monday date to get the 3 days, or do we not